I now have the pleasure of introducing our Making Connections alumni speaker. She is a 2009 graduate of Making Connections, a teacher, an activist, and a true change maker. She grew up in South Seattle and attended a few different schools as she bounced around between school districts. Finally, as a student at Cleveland High School, she joined Making Connections, and from there, her life changed. You'll learn more about her history in her speech, but what I want you to know right now is how passionately dedicated she is to serving the communities she grew up in and applying the lessons she learned at Making Connections to youth in her childhood neighborhood. She was a first-year law student when Trayvon Martin was tragically murdered. And in that moment, she knew in her heart her place in this world was not in law school learning to interpret the system, but in elementary school, shaping minds of those who would change the system. As she says, I want to meet kids in the first system they enter. I want to get to them before the world eats them alive. I want to make sure they know they are so much more than what society gives them credit for. She spends each day teaching her students reading, writing, arithmetic, and their self-worth. She shares values of community and compassion, exposes them to a world of possibilities, and inspires our future generation of leaders to challenge the status quo, just as Making Connections did for her. Friends, please welcome to the stage Chelsea Adams.
Thank you all for having me here tonight. My speech is a story, but it's also so much more. I just want to give a round of applause for everybody who is here and for all of those women of courage who have done so many amazing things in this world so far and all the things that they're going to do. Let's clap it up for them. Thank you. When one of us makes it, we all make it. That was a famous lesson that my great-grandmother, Geraldine Green, taught me. At the time, I didn't know how true those words would be. My great-grandmother was a very wise woman, but did not have the opportunity to go to college. Rather, she stayed at home raising 11 children. Later, she also played a significant role in raising me. During my sophomore year of high school, I was fortunate enough to discover Sinite in the Making Connections program. Let me take a moment to let you know who I was as a 10th grader, so you have some context as to why Making Connections is and has always been so important for me. At the time, I had recently been expelled from a previous school district. I was a new student at Cleveland High School. Now, I'm sure you all can imagine what my attitude was like and how I felt about school. To use one of my former teacher's descriptions of me, I was hell on wheels. This is when Sinite re-entered my life. I had worked with Sinite in my middle school before her days with Making Connections. When I saw her at my new high school, I was relieved to see a familiar face. Like any effective person trying to reach high school students, she wisely invited us to come and listen and learn about making connections over pizza. With a mouthful of food and with Sinite's promise to help me, I signed up for Making Connections. From this day forward, the trajectory of my life changed forever. When I began Making Connections, I had dreams, but no knowledge of how or resources to achieve them. For example, I knew about college, generally speaking, but I did not know what I needed to do to get there. Sinite showed me and all my Making Connections peers that we had options. Because Sinai looked like me and knew where I was from, I felt connected to her. I trusted her. I believed her. Speaking for myself, but knowing this is an experience of most Making Connections students, Sinai was tireless in her efforts to make sure that not only me, but my family had the tools and the access to the college application process. I will never forget how Sinai visited my home. She sat and listened with empathy as my great-grandmother shared our family's hardships. My great-grandmother was 17 years old when she had my grandmother. My grandmother was 13 years old when she had my mother. My mother was 22 when she had me. I share this to help you understand where I come from. I do not come from a lineage of privilege, education, or white-collar careers. I come from a lineage of underserved but tenacious women who taught me how to survive. When I saw Sinai and joined Making Connections, I knew this was my ticket out of generations of poverty and oppression. Sinai exposed me to things that I never knew existed. For example, Sinai was the first Black woman I ever met with a STEM degree. I had no idea that Black women could become biologists. What? When Making Connections took me and my peers on college visits, Sinai didn't just show us, quote unquote, the college tour of dorms and beautiful architecture and the food. She sat us in lecture halls. She took us to labs. She made sure that we seen ourselves there. Let me say that to you again. She made sure that we seen ourselves there. Now that is a transformative experience. Until these moments, as a Black woman, I thought that the only way that I could be something more was to move far away and attend a historical Black college. But when it came time for me to choose where to apply, Sinai sat me down and showed me that I didn't have to leave my city for great opportunity or leave my great-grandmother in her time of need to find opportunities like I thought. You see, the Seattle I grew up in was very small. I was listening to NPR the other day, and they said that Seattle is the most educated city in the United States. That's great news. But it made me chuckle a little bit because the Seattle I grew up in didn't even equip my high school with proper textbooks and left me unprepared to come to college. The Seattle I knew had zero opportunities for a girl like me. Sinai and the Making Connections program did something that was so important for me. They showed me that opportunity was right within reach. To make sure that I knew how to access the opportunity, Sinai taught me how to find and apply to scholarships and how to craft a professional email. She introduced me to financial literacy, and in doing so, I am helping my family end a cycle of poverty that stems back generations. After several anxious months, waiting to hear from colleges, the previously unimaginable happened. I received my acceptance letter to the University of Washington. And thanks to the Making Connections program, it was 100% paid for by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Achiever Scholarship, and the Husky Promise Grant. Through every season, Making Connections has been there for me. Not only helping me make the decision to attend college, but helping me prepare for college, but also by supporting me through college. In addition to employing me as a UW student and continuing to teach me how to transition into adulthood. Sinite made sure I stayed in school and thrived. When I lost my great-grandmother and wanted to drop out, Sinite wouldn't have it. For these reasons and so many more, I am deeply committed to giving back to Making Connections. And for these reasons, Sinite will forever be my lifelong mentor. And for this reason, I am happy to share my story with you. Now, I want to take a moment to honor Sinite. Sinite, please stand wherever you are. Please stand for Sinite. Please stand for her. You have no idea how hard this woman works. 20 years. She's been here for 12. Hard years of her dedication and work has pulled a lot of us up. A lot of us. When one of us makes it, we all make it. Sinite and every supporter of Making Connections, I stand before you today as a public school teacher. Not only did I graduate from the UW with a bachelor's in sociology, but I returned and completed my master's in teaching. I currently teach 5th grade at South Shore Pre-K 8, a Title I school just like the ones I grew up in. 80% of my students live in poverty. I am one of 4 Black teachers at my school, and just like Sinite was to me, I am many of my students' first Black educator. And the first one to show them that they can do what I've done and more. And just like me at their age, many of my students have not had the opportunity or the exposure to learn what could be. My junior year of high school, I lost 6 peers to gun violence. Dealing with that was beyond difficult. I am very aware that I could have gone down a different path. But instead, Making Connections found me. And now, I am in a position to influence the lives of young people in my city. As a teacher, I look forward to the time when I can reunite with a student, maybe one that was even hell on wheels for me, and learn that they too are an educator or giving back to our community. When one of us makes it, we all make it. This is what my great-grandmother taught me and what I teach my students. Tonight, we are here to make sure that Making Connections can keep helping young people make it. Without the financial support of generous donors who have supported this program for over the last 20 years, I may not be where I am today. Neither would the other 2 decades worth of students and families who have been served by this program. I am here because I believe in this program. And on behalf of students across King County, thank you for being here and for recognizing and supporting Making Connections. Thank you.
Keep it going for Chelsea. Yes. Chelsea, you should turn and look at the audience real fast. Hey, Chelsea, look over there.